A very warm welcome to the participants of the Proteomics Advanced Winter School 2021. Presented by Proteomics Lab, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. Day 3, Mass Spectrometry-Based Proteomics. Lecture 1, Basics of Mass Spectrometry-Based Proteomics.
Overall, the field of proteomics is really comprised of a variety of technologies, as we have been discussing. And whether you do gel-based proteomics, which we spoke in the first module, or you directly move on to shotgun proteomics, you are bound to go to mass spec at some stage, right? And even at the functional proteomics level, many times when you are looking at some new potential interactors, uh, people do try to confirm those, identify those new partners from the IPMS based experiments, again using mass spectrometers. So whether you do discovery proteomics or functional proteomics, I think mass spectrometry is going to play a very important role in different workflow of proteomics. So in my presentation, I'm going to give you starting from something very basic, which will look to some of you repetitive, or some of you might find it, that you have never thought about all these small and basic details. But then I will talk to you mainly about different configurations of mass spectrometers, what makes them different type of mass spec. Like everybody otherwise think that there is some mass spec in their institute or nearby, but why there are different type of mass spec and what are the capabilities of mass spectrometers. We will talk about nut and bolts of mass spec. I'll give you a brief overview of different type of workflows involved in doing MS-based proteomics, but as we go along in these sessions, then we will have more and more details about different type of mass spectrometry-based workflows. And finally, I'll give you some flavor that how recently accomplished some of the human proteome project, which we spoke with Dr. Ravi as well yesterday, have been really relying on the MS-based proteomics. So mass spec is just one of the sensitive balance. Only change here is that what we are looking at, we have our protein in solution, and then that protein we are taking forward with the in solution digestion to convert to the peptide forms, and then these peptides are further going to be ionized, and these ionized species we want to separate them in mass spec with both magnetic and electric field, and we want to separate them looking based on their mass and charge ratio. So mass spectrometers are technique for protein identification and analysis by producing charged molecular species in the vacuum and separating them in magnetic and electric fields based on M by Z ratio. A proteomics workflow which involves mass spec has several of these components. The very first thing is, you took the protein, and that protein came from either gel-based workflow or directly you have extracted and prepared the lysate. Go back to the first day's discussions about sample prep. Let's say you have prepared the sample from urea lysate, or prepared from TC acetone precipitation, and you directly want to proceed for the shotgun proteomics directly using mass spec. So you need not to separate them on the gel, but directly you can take the protein, go for in solution digestion, make the proteolytic peptides. But alternatively, if you have already used SDSP or 2D gels, you can do in gel digestion, and then again this workflow will remain the same after that. So first part which is crucial is the in gel or in solution digestion. We'll talk more about that in the afternoon session. Then comes the liquid chromatography part, because the peptides, what we are talking is at the proteome scale, we are talking about thousands of protein and probably several thousands to million of peptides, which you want to separate. So to reduce the complexity, we are going to separate them with the reverse phase and strong cation exchange columns. And once these peptides are separated, we are going to put them in the mass spectrometer. In the mass spectrometers, the first part will be how to take your liquid-based peptides and convert them to the ionized forms. And that's where these ionization sources are important. There are different type of ionization source, which I will talk in some detail. Electrospray ionization or matrix-assisted laser desorption ionization. Then from these ions, which are going to move it inside the mass analyzer, you want to separate them based on the mass and charge ratio. And now you think about, you have these thousands of peptide, and they're, converted to millions of these ions. All these ions are going to go inside these mass analyzer. It has to be really quick to read all these ions to come fast. And as many ions you can read, only that much, the coverage you can get for these proteins eventually from the database search. So that's where a lot of innovation happens in the fourth part, which is essentially different type of mass analyzers. And you must have heard the names like, TOF, time of flight, or quadruples, Orbitrap, ion trap, magnetic sector, ion cyclotron resonance. There are a variety of mass analyzers. So when we say mass spec, actually, it's essentially what misnomer is that we think about a mass analyzer is a mass spec. But there are different components which are all making it mass spectrometer, including a detector. But the predominant part here remains the fourth part, which is the mass analyzer. How best to resolve and separate these ions using different type of physical principles. And now if you have only one mass analyzer, you can generate only MS spectrum. If you have two mass analyzers like this, in this case, you can generate MS spectrum. So again, some of these things I will talk in more detail, but this is, I think, an important slide to keep in your mind while thinking about that you are intended to do MS-based proteomics. So you'd like to proceed for these workflows. And each one of these, I must say, that requires lot of innovation and lot of, troubleshooting steps. And that's where, I think many times people, when they start here and they want to see good data out here, there's a lot of, gap here because, you are not able to pick up the details at each stage. And each of these stages are very crucial if you really want to obtain good data. It's not very difficult to do it, but as long as you are making a good, check sheet that, you have done these things and your data looks good for till this stage, then you should be able to move to the next stage. So mass spectrometers, broadly, their role are to first generate ions because you want to convert your all the liquid based peptides into the ionized forms. And for doing that, you are using different ways of either mix the protein solution with the matrix in the MALDI, or you are directly taking the liquid chromatography system from the HPLC or nano-LC and converting them in the ionized form using electrospray ionization. Then you are separating those based on mass and charge ratios. You are collecting all these ions on the detector and trying to measure the relative abundance. And then finally, you want to analyze the data with the mass spectrometer using the databases. Just a couple of basic terms, which again, as I said, some of you may not have thought of because we only think very advanced things when we think about mass spec or proteomics. And some of you who might have taken my previous MOOC courses may have gone through some of these basic concepts, but I think it's a good idea for all of the participants to come on the same page. And these are important concepts to keep in mind. For instance, when we say that we are going to look at electrospray ionization, which is going to make charge species. So the multiple charge species concept is very important over there. Now just take this example that you have tryptic peptide for which the mass is 773. If you have singly charged ions, it is 774. If it is doubly charged ion, I'm sure you can do the bit of maths here. It is going to be much reduced. It is going to be 387.5. So now what you have obtained by increasing the charge state. So if it is a doubly charged, the mass to charge ratio has reduced. If it was triply charged, mass to charge ratio will further reduce, right? So what it is going to do, if you are generating multiple charge species +1, +2, +3 ions, now that is going to help you to overall reduce the mass to charge ratio. And that's very important, especially when you are looking at different type of mass analyzers. Mass analyzers, except of time of flight, rest of the mass analyzers have limited range when how much they can read the M/Z ratio. So now if the mass is too much, they cannot read that. And that's where quadrupole, ion trap, Orbitrap, many of these type of mass analyzers, for them it becomes essential to interface that with electrospray ionization. Electrospray ionization is interfaced with the liquid chromatography, nano-LC or UHPLC, where you are adding the formic acid acetonitrile to convert and create the acidic environment and generate these different multiple charge states. So that's become very important. In case of multi-TOF based work, that multi based work generates your singly charged ions. So now the overall M by Z ratio is going to be much larger. And therefore, if you are using multi, you will always see that any institute which has multi is always multi-TOF. You will never hear that there's a multi-orbit trap or multi-ion trap, right? It's usually multi-TOF because TOF is the only mass analyzer which can take very large M by Z ratios. So I hope this basic concept of mass to charge ratio is giving you some idea that why all the mass spectrometer which you see, which are having nano LC or UHPLC, they which are with the ESI, electrospray ionization, they have variety of configurations, from orbit trap to quadrupoles to ion trap. But whenever you have multi, it's always interface with the TOF only, and that's where multi-TOF is can take the overall higher mass, and M by Z can be much larger over there. So second thing comes is the mass accuracy. Since you are trying to measure these ions and you want to be very sure that what you are measuring is exactly same value, right? So you want to allow very minimal error here, and that's where it becomes very important for any mass spectrometer to go as close as possible to the true value of that particular molecule. And think about the drug doping test which people do for the athletes test, right? If they can change the mass and mass accuracy is not correct, somebody has taken a tea and can be given a diagnosis that okay, now you are taking a drug and you cannot be allowed to play in Olympic. So that can be totally problem, right? So your accuracy has to be really very sharp, and it has to be in the ppm. So how to calculate that? So many times you will hear that this mass spectrometer can go up to 10 ppm or it can go up to 5 ppm. Now many of the mass specs are coming 1 ppm or less than 1 ppm. So how they are calculating that? Most of the time all the mass spectrometer vendors, they will take some standard compounds, and those they try to run in their very best optimized condition to make sure that theoretical mass and experimental mass, they are coming very close, and then they are able to claim that they have something which is 1 ppm or less than 1 ppm. But of course, you can also do this calculation by running some standard compounds, and you can also determine what is the mass accuracy of your mass spectrometer by using the simple simple formula, where mass theoretical minus mass experimental divided by theoretical mass times 10 to the power 6 is going to give you parts per million accuracy of the mass spectrometer. Any mass spec when you are going to purchase, you are going to look at some of these configuration. What is the mass accuracy of that mass spectrometer? And you look at the technical specification of that instrument. Mass resolution, that's very important. You say, okay, this mass spectrometer has very high resolution. This mass spectrometer can only go up to 40,000 resolution. This can go up to 5 million. So all these terms you hear, and the first part of my presentation and lecture is to really give you the comfort of thinking about from where these numbers are being calculated. So when you are looking at resolution, you are trying to look at how my mass spec can resolve different molecular species which are similar but having distinct masses, right? And that's where you are looking at one of the dimensionless ratio of M by Z value. When you are looking at different peaks are here, but for each peak, if you look at what is their width and what is their mass. So now you are looking at FWHM, which is full width and half maximum. So what is the full width at the half maxima? And that is something calculated as the R, which is known as the mass resolution. And that is something, again, companies play with it to try to get the best with the standards. But you can always try on multiple compounds and you can get an average ratio that, this particular mass spec can have resolution between 30 to 35,000. And this is a dimensionless ratio. Now, based on some of these concepts of mass spectrometer, when the field of proteomics was evolving around 1998 or so, so that time 2D gels and dye gels were really kind of booming very well, and that was the major proteomics technology being used. But that time a concept of MUDPIT, multi-dimensional protein identification technology, came from John Yates' lab, and they developed this method and showed that if you take the complex peptide mixtures, separate them with a strong cation exchange and reverse phase, and do MS/MS analysis, it is going to give you the good coverage of the proteome, like what you do in two-dimensional separation using 2D gels. So that is something which is, was a very revolutionary shift in the mind that people were able to now resolve the complex proteome without need for the gels or 2D gels. So this is something which I think is an important thing to keep in mind, and that's where a lot of stuff of proteomics has really now revolved directly with the shotgun proteomics without involving the gels. So now we have at least learned a little bit about some basic terminologies. What is the M by Z ratio? What is the mass accuracy? What is the resolution? What is the shotgun proteomics? Now let me give you some comfort knowing about different type of mass spectrometers, what their configurations are, right? So that is something very important. So that now I'll talk in the this part, where you can see that there are different components of mass spectrometers. So I already gave you some brief that there are ionization source, mass analyzers, and detectors. These are the three major components. So the first important part here is the sample inlet, which is the accessory part, which is involving the nano LC or UHPLC. Then we have this data output, which is another important accessory, which is required for data analysis. But these three remains the major nut and bolts of the mass spectrometer. And I'll talk a little bit more about each one of these, so that shortly we will know that what are the terminologies for different type of mass spectrometers. So MALDI, I'm sure many of you are familiar, like at least you would have taken a protein of interest and have gone for MALDI-TOF analysis to know what is the mass of your given purified protein or a other given compound. So in case of MALDI, you are taking your protein of interest, mixing them with an aromatic compound, which you term as a matrix, put them on a plate, which is the MALDI plate. And MALDI plate, good thing is that it can be in the 96 well plate format or 384 well plate format. So you can go as many as hundreds of samples where you have different proteins which are mixed with the matrix, and you place them on the this MALDI plate. After adding the matrix and your analyte, then you want to dry them to make them crystallized form. And good, all right, we see some laser beams now coming, some sound from the laser. And all those protein and matrix, now they are making these ions which are going to move it inside the TOF, time of flight. So the MALDI is in many ways, it's very good technology, because here you don't have to do a lot of sample preparation. You don't have to worry for optimizing the liquid chromatography based conditions. And as long as you can make good crystals, you can keep hundreds of sample on the gel. Like just think about, you have done the 2D gel and you have 100 spot to identify what those proteins are. If you can now do in-gel digestion, take the matrix, place each one of those on different wells of the MALDI plate, and then dry them up, keep them in the MALDI instrument, and now just put automated way of laser bombardment. It is going to work overnight for you for next 3-4 days and generate the data for 100 proteins without your manual intervention here. All it will define that how many shots you have to give for the laser. You can define 15-20 shots, and then that is going to generate your data. Whereas in case of ESI based LC MSMS, every sample is going to take you longer time. Here in MALDI, it's much quicker, much faster, and also the sample prep is much easier. You're not much bothered about the salt contamination or too much interference in that, because it is coming on the plate, and then you are doing laser bombardment. But in case of the ESI based nano LC based work, your sample has to be ultra pure, otherwise it's going to clog your columns for the liquid chromatography part. I'm just trying to give you the comparative feel of in which context MALDI can be good, in which context ESI can be good. Aim here is not to just teach you how MALDI works, but also the context of where MALDI is better, where ESI is better. So you should think about some of these considerations. None of the mass specs are bad. Every mass spec is having some very unique capability and very unique application if you think it right way. So you don't need to put everything on the LC-MS based approach. If the aim was only to identify the protein from SDS page band or from your 2D gels, I think MALDI-TOF based workflow is made good to take it forward. So other part is ESI or electrospray ionization. So here you are always interfacing your mass spectrometer with the nano LC or UHPLC. So your protein is coming in the solution form. In case of MALDI, protein was actually mixed with the matrix so that it is converted into the crystallized forms and forming the crystals. That's why it is said that MALDI is done in the solid form, whereas ESI is performed in the liquid form. So now this is the nanocapillary from where this your peptides in the solution form are coming, and before it moves to the mass spectrometer, the mass analyzers, it has to change to the gaseous ionized form, and that's where the electron spray ionization becomes very important. It is going to generate these ion currents, and it is all your peptides are now converted to the ionized forms, and they have to move it inside the mass analyzer. And this in between part is very crucial because this is where you are going to lose a lot of ions, and all ions are eventually your proteins and peptides which you want to conserve as much as possible, right? And this typical cone which is formed based on a scientist's name known as Taylor's cone, and now you are trying to create from the ambient pressure, you are creating inside the mass spectrometer lower pressure, and outside this positive charge you keep it negative charge. So in some way with the pressure differential, with the charge differential, you are trying to create an atmosphere so that most of the ions can move it inside the your mass analyzers, and you can now separate them with the different type of principles of mass analyzers. So now comes the role of mass analyzer. There are different types. I can't talk about everything right now, but I just still want to make sure that you understand that when you say that there is a TOF mass spec or Orbitrap or ion trap or quadrupole, these are only one component of mass spectrometer, which is mass analyzers. And there are many type of analyzers are there, including ICR, ion cyclotron resonance, and magnetic sector. Given some of the complexities of their setup, despite that they're very good, but still they're not very popularly used. So TOF is one of the very common used mass analyzer. And again, as I mentioned, given the challenges of only singly charged ions which can come from the MALDI, now you are always interfacing MALDI with the TOF, time of flight. And time of flight is just simply going to see when all your ions which you want to measure, based on their mass and charge ratio, how much time they take to reach to the detector. So you are going to measure the M/Z ratios of these ions, that how much time they're going to take to fly in the analyzer and strike to the detector. So after doing the laser bombardment, these ions are being formed. They are moving it inside the TOF tube and taking some time to reach to the detector, and you are looking at mass discrimination based on their flight time, which is exponentially proportional to their flight time. Other type of mass analyzer is quite popular, which is also considered as a mass filter, that is known as quadrupole. And when we say quadrupole, there are a set of 4 metallic parallel rods, which is oppositely charged and electrically connected. So by varying the the voltage over the time period, you are trying to resolve these ions in this magnetic and electric field, and you are trying to further separate those with. If you are interested to look at, after using quadrupole 1, you can always interface them with the TOF, for instance, time of flight, or you can always interface them with the another quadrupole as well, or you can interface them with Orbitrap. So quadrupole in many ways becomes mass filter, because what it does, it's going to take your true most abundant ions, and as you define that, take top 10 abundant ions in that given 3 millisecond time period, it's going to filter those and then going to further do the bombardment with the nitrogen or argon or inert gases in the collision cell. So what I have shown you here is actually one type of configuration which is for a triple quad mass spec, but I'll talk in some time. But essentially you want to pay attention that one of the properties of these quadrupoles to separate these ions in the opposite pairs electrically connected rods is being utilized in almost all type of ESI based mass spectrometer, and that serves as the mass filter, true mass filter, to take your most abundant ions. Orbitrap, I think everybody is nowadays excited to know about Orbitrap. This is, in principle, it is like an ion trap, but does not have the radio frequency or magnetic field. The central voltage, the central electrodes are kept on the very high voltage in the Orbitrap, and it is having different electrodes, the outer electrodes and the inner electrodes, and you are trying to pick up the image current which is induced by these ion packets, which is moving inside the trap, and then you are trying to measure these trapped ions around the electrode. We will be talking more about Orbitrap as we go along. But now, since you have already learned that there are ESI or MALDI based ionization source, you have also learned that there are different type of mass analyzers like quadruples, ion traps, Orbitraps, TOF. So now we can think about what makes different type of mass spectrometer configurations. So a basic concept comes here. What is the tandem mass spectrometer or hybrid mass spectrometer or MSMS? This concept, if you can understand, which I think is very simple, but if you keep in mind, then all type of mass spectrometers you can decode very easily. So in any type of mass spectrometer, when we say hybrid mass spectrometer, it means it should have at least two type of mass analyzers, right? So like QTOF is a hybrid mass spectrometer. Likewise, if I say TOF is again hybrid mass spectrometer. So now you think about this one as one mass analyzer and this one is second mass analyzer. In the first mass analyzer, now let's think about the most popular configuration QTOF and think ourselves this is the quadrupole. So when you have these thousands of peptide which are in the liquid phase and they are getting converted to the gaseous ionized forms, now forming the at several thousand to million of ions. Now these precursor ions, there are too many which are coming at the same time to the instrument, to the first mass analyzer. So you are defining that with the survey scan or the precursor scan, that which are the most intense precursors, and only those masses we can read, because you cannot read everything at the same time. So you are telling mass spectrometer that in the first quadrupole, when you see at least top 15 or 20 precursors, only select those in the 3 millisecond or 5 millisecond window, isolate them and then further fragment those. And while you finish that, you go back and again now look at more intense precursor, but don't repeat what you've already taken. So in that way, you are trying to keep collecting most intense precursors in the different cycle, and that's a duty cycle, and the scan speed becomes very important parameters in the mass spectrometer. So now let's say you have selected 451 as the most intense precursor. You are isolating that in a collision cell and you are secreting that ion now, and you want to bombard that ion using different type of dissociation based cells. Now collision induced dissociation CID or high collision induced dissociation SCD, or you can have electron transfer dissociation ETD. There are different type of ways to do this collision, but concept is that you are going to fragment this most intense precursor to the fragment ions. And this fragment pattern, what you generate, the red one which I'm showing here, which is now seen as a fragmentation scan here. Now this is what is going to generate your peptide sequence, because this is going to, we will talk in more detail in the mass spec data analysis part in the afternoon, but this is part is going to provide you the composition of the amino acids, and based on that you can derive what could be the peptide sequence. So several points comes here which are very important. Now this configuration which I'm showing you, think about as a QTOF, for instance. So this is now a hybrid technology. Since we have two mass analyzers, this is known as in tandem MS. Since you are generating only MS1 spectrum here and MS2 spectrum here, this is known as MSMS scan or MS2. Sometimes companies claim it is MSN. It can go many rounds of MSMS analysis, right? Now you can also think about if you had only one mass analyzer, so you can only detect the most intense precursors, so you can only provide theoretical mass. You cannot provide their sequence. So now if your instrument has only one mass analyzer, for instance, if I tell you that you have only MALDI-TOF, so you can only generate the data for the most intense precursors, and you can say what is the mass of these ions which I want to measure. You cannot tell what is their sequence. If you want to know sequence, then MALDI-TOF has to be interfaced with one more TOF, and then you can say now what is the sequence of that cell peptide and protein which you want to analyze. So MALDI-TOF can give you only this, MALDI-TOF can give you this hybrid configuration, right? Likewise, ESI-Q-TOF can give you this configuration. So I hope this gives you now some comfort thinking and dissecting out any type of mass spectrometer. Whenever you go to any institute, you now see this is the ESI Q-TOF. You now know that, okay, you can do MSMS analysis, you can do peptide sequencing, you can analyze the protein and get the peptide sequence. Now, adjacent to that, there is an instrument kept there, which is only MALDI-TOF. Now you can say, okay, I can measure the mass of my protein. Theoretically, I can know what that protein could be, but I cannot say by confirmation with the sequence that this is exactly my protein or peptide sequence. So that is the difference which you can make. Now, hybrid mass spec can be N type, variety of vendors. They're all coming with different type of configurations. And there is so much competition and so much intense innovations happening in this area of hybrid and tribrid mass spectrometer. But all are based on that you got two different type of mass analyzers or three different type of mass analyzer. You are trying to put them mix and match and try to use the best of these mass analyzers, physical principle. Right, so that's all we are going to now very quickly go through a couple of configurations to make you comfortable knowing a different type of mass spectrometers. So multi-TOF, as I said, now multi-part we know from previous discussion, TOF1 and TOF2. Now because in between the two TOF, whenever you have hybrid configuration, you are going to have the collision cell. You are taking the most intense precursors, fragmenting those, generating the fragment ion patterns now. And now this multi-TOF can be used for the peptide sequencing, for the proteomics analysis, very good to go. QTOF, ESI QTOF is another very popular configuration. At least 5 or 6 mass spectrometer companies are making the QTOF based mass spectrometer. Very nice configuration, very good mass spectrometer, easy to handle. And you have here power of two different type of mass analyzer. One is quadrupole, where you are selecting the abundant intense precursors, then taking those forward and trying to separate them based on the flight time in the TOF tube. So Q, quadrupole, and TOF, time of flight. In between those, you have a collision cell. So I hope now things are getting more and more clear that we got hybrid configurations always having a collision cell in between and two different configurations of the mass analyzers, right? Let me show you one clip of one technology which I like personally. Of course, in this presentation or any of our presentations of mass spec, we are not going to support any vendor or any instrument configuration, but just because I want to give you the feel of different type of good mass spectrometers, I'm going to display you one of the QTOF technology, which also we have at IIT Bombay here. But the reason I like this QTOF is the interface which comes for the electrospray ionization. And before that, we have the HPLC part. Those two have been interfaced in this type of mass spectrometer. This is a chip cube QTOF from the Agilent technology. So let me play this for you.
It's time to prepare for a new generation LC-MS technology from Agilent. HPLC Chip MS. The Agilent 1200 series HPLC Chip MS platform takes you to a new level of nanoflow LC-MS performance by combining microfluidics with an easy-to-use plug-and-play interface that lets you focus on your results. The Agilent HPLC Chip MS platform is based on the Agilent HPLC Chip and Agilent HPLC Chip MS interface that is designed for use with all Agilent 6000 series mass spectrometers. The Agilent HPLC Chip integrates enrichment and analytical columns, microvalve connections, and metal-coated nano-electro-spray tip on an inert multi-layer polyimide film, and is smaller than a credit card. The compact architecture of the Agilent HPLC chip reduces peak dispersion and combines all steps from sample loading through compound ionization for a seamless operation. A closer look at the HPLC chip reveals that sample enrichment and separation columns of a nanoflow LC system are integrated with intricate connections and nano-electro spray tip for compound ionization in mass spectrometry. This eliminates 50% of the traditional fittings and connections typically required in a nanoflow LC-MS system, which dramatically reduces the possibility of leaks and dead volumes and significantly improves ease of use, sensitivity, productivity, and reliability. The HPLC chip also incorporates all electrical contacts for the nano-electrospray tip and features an embedded radio frequency ID tag that tracks the usage and operating parameters of the chip. The HPLC chips are housed in the Agilent 1200 series HPLC Chip MS interface, the ChipQ. The ChipQ includes an electrospray ion source with optics for spray visualization, HPLC chip loading and ejection mechanism, nano LC connections, and micro valve switching. The HPLC chip loading mechanism precisely and optimally positions the electrospray tip orthogonal to the MS inlet for maximum sensitivity and robustness, day in, day out. With the Agilent 1200 series Nano LC system, including micro well plate autosampler and loading pump, Connected directly to the chip cube, an HPLC chip is loaded and leak-tight fluid connections are established automatically by sandwiching the chip between the rotor and the stator of the built-in multi-port microvalve. The rotor and stator dock onto the chip and establish a flow path from the Nano LC to the ports on the chip surface. Fast movement of the rotor ensures reliable switching between sample loading and sample analysis positions on the HPLC chip. Replacement of the HPLC chip is simple and can be completed in a few seconds. Let's look at how the Agilent 1200 series HPLC chip MS system can be applied to a typical protein identification analysis. The Agilent Microwell Plate Autosampler loads the digested proteins. The solvent flow moves the peptides into the trapping column. The microvalve changes the flow path. The gradient flow from the NanoFlow pump takes the enriched sample from the trapping column to the separation column. The peptides are separated just like on a conventional NanoFlow column. Reduced peak dispersion yields better separation efficiency and sensitivity. The integrated nanospray tip ensures reproducible nebulization of the effluent, vital for optimum ionization of compounds and best results. Proven NanoFlow LC-MS technology and the new and exciting capabilities of microfluidics combine to form a system that is easy to set up and easy to maintain. Scientists can now get more results faster. The flexibility of the HPLC chip design and the HPLC chip MS interface microvalve technology in integrating additional chemistries and separation strategies opens up a wide range of potential solutions for many research challenges. On-chip multi-dimensional Nano LC is one of many possible new applications. By adding more layers to the HPLC chip, additional capabilities such as two-dimensional HPLC, affinity chromatography, and on-chip chemistries such as on-chip protein digestion are possible. These new applications and many others, such as chips with different columns lengths and packing materials, are part of Agilent's exciting custom HPLC chip portfolio. Moving beyond protein identification, the new phospho chip with a sandwiched, reversed phase titanium dioxide trapping column provides researchers working on post-translational modification with a convenient tool targeted at phosphorylated peptides. Pushing beyond proteomics, the new ultra-high capacity chip with a 500 nanoliter trapping column facilitates analysis of pharmaceuticals such as drug metabolism pharmacokinetics with better sensitivity and much lower sample requirement. This will be extremely attractive when the single animal testing model is implemented in pharmaceutical analysis. The HPLC chip MS interface is a standard module within the Agilent 1200 series LC portfolio and is fully controllable through the Agilent ChemStation or Agilent Mass Hunter software. Step by step, chip by chip, Agilent will facilitate new applications in life science, pharmaceutical, and chemical analysis. HPLC chip MS, a growing trend in LC-MS technology. Agilent Technologies.
All right. Well, so this was just a representation of any type of QTOF technology, but the chip was really innovative part of that. I hope you got some idea for various type of QTOF mass spec. Next, which I'm showing you here is Orbitrap Fusion, which is also we have in our mass spec facility, and we'll be using it quite a bit in this workshop. So the major part so far what we have spoken are all hybrid technologies like multi-TOF or ESI QTOF. But what you see here is ESI Orbitrap, right, which is having a tribrid configuration. So Orbitrap is a misnomer in this way here because it got three different mass analyzer. It got quadrupole, Orbitrap, and ion trap. So Orbitrap Fusion is much more superior as compared to other hybrid technologies, if you say, because it also offers you variety of ways of fragmenting your ions. In addition to just the normal CID or HCD, it also gives you option for ETD. And now you can have multiple capabilities of fragmenting your ions for different type of applications. And given that you have millions of ions are moving it in here from the S lens and coming to the C trap column reaching here, you have lot of place where you can packet these ions and store these ions and now move them either to the orbit trap or move them to the ion trap depending on what kind of applications you are looking at. So in that way, with by mix and match, you can try to use the different capabilities of different type of mass analyzer using ESI LC, MS or B-trap, triple tribrid fusion based technology. This is going to be quite helpful, and it will be used a lot of data we are going to use from this instrument. Let me show you briefly about the principle of this instrument and Orbitrap technology.
Your Orbitrap Elite, if you look at this, is a hybrid systems which has two mass spectrometer. The mass spectrometer which is sitting front is a linear trap, so LTQ, Orbitrap Veloce, and then the back end which is there is the high field Orbitrap, or called the Orbitrap Elite. If you look at the schematic of the system, in the front part of the system, it is the ionization source which sits on the front. Then you have the transfer optics, and the transfer optics we have the S lines, which is the newest generations transfer optics. After the transfer optics, we have the transfer tubes, and we have the neutral blockers, which blocks the neutrals which is coming from the source. Then we have the octapole, and then the ion trap. In the ion trap, we have two resins. One is a high pressure cell, low pressure cell. Then on the radial, there is two detectors, detector 1. When you work with the linear trap, the detector is used for the detections of ion from the linear trap. From the linear trap, it goes to the transfer optics. Then we have the C trap, which dynamically squeezes the ion into packet and allows that ions to go into the high field orbit trap. Then you have the SCD cell. So coming back to the ionization source, the ions generated from the source and goes into the transfer optics. And after going from the transfer optics, it goes to the linear trap. In the linear trap, in a full scan mode, the ions are stored into the high pressure cell. Once these ions are stored into high pressure cells in the full scan mode, the ions then change into the C trap through the ion transfer optics. Then it goes into the C trap. The C trap does cooling the ion and makes it into the packet of ion, so that the packet of ion injected into the orbit trap. Because the orbit trap itself is in a static field, so you have to inject the ion and tangent to the field. So once the ions goes into the orbit trap, it moves into the orbit, and the frequency is recorded, which gives you in turn the mass spectrum. If you want to work the linear trap and the orbit trap at the same time, you can run both the same at the same time. In the linear trap, the ions get stored and fragmented, and then it sends into the orbit trap. So you can have the full scan MS as well as full scan MS at the same time. Apart from.
All right, let us also now talk about triple quadrupole based mass spectrometer. I gave you some brief idea about the quadrupoles. Now, if the aim is to look at some very specific peptides, which you want to further analyze, triple quadrupole mass spectrometers are very useful for doing targeted proteomics type of work when you want to validate your specific peptide based targets. So for instance, from your shotgun proteomics work, whether you have done the label-free quantification or label-based quantification, you have identified set of protein which you think are potential biomarker, but now you want to validate those. And without having the access to the antibodies, you want to still validate some of the peptides. Are they showing the same increased trend in the large number of patient samples? So you cannot keep going again to the QTOF or Orbitrap to keep separating all the ions and keep looking at the same pattern across hundreds of samples, but rather like ELISA or other type of validation strategy, you want to now selectively look at the specific proteins of interest or peptides of interest. And that's where in triple quadrupole mass spec, if you define that which of the peptide sequences you want to analyze, and now you look at the B and Y ions and generate the transition series, and now you want to only select those ions which are of your interest, further fragment those, and now generate these MS spectrum for that and measure their relative intensities. This is what is being done in the triple quadrupole based targeted proteomics workflow, which we will talk in more detail. But I'm just giving you idea. It is another type of hybrid MS configuration, which is having quadrupole, one set of quadrupole and second set of quadrupole. Q2 is a misnomer, which is only the collision cell here. So I hope you got some idea for variety of things which we spoke so far, which are nut and bolts of mass spectrometer, the ionization sources, the mass analyzer, the detector, and then the combination of these mass analyzers to make it hybrid configurations or tribrid configurations, right? Mass spec, as I said, is currently being used as a buzzword for the entire proteomics field and has really pretty much replaced many of the technologies and has become one of the major workhorse in the proteomics lab. And given the ease of doing shotgun proteomics, where you can just simply extract the protein or make the lysate, digest those with, you have to use the reduction and alkylation steps and digest the peptides. And then after those, clean the peptides and simply inject in the mass spec. In a daytime, depending on the digestion efficiency of the enzyme, actually you can perform the whole experiment, right? If the trypsin, which is very fast trypsin, can be done in 3 or 4 hours digestion, then theoretically you can start from the beginning till end in 1 day type of experiment, which is making it very much close to the clinical type of experiments or what is really needed for its wide deployment, right? Otherwise, you have to go through a series of steps of several days, and that may not be possible for you to do that. Although, as what I said is on the fast track, but in general, 2 days is a very comfortable time when you can start from the lysate. Overnight, you can set up your digestion, and next day morning, you do the sample cleanup, and followed by running the mass spec and generate MS or MSMS data analysis. So all that is definitely very much doable. Routinely, we do in at least 2 days, but on the fast track, one could also do in 1 day time. Now, broadly, whatever all things of which I have been speaking is going to generate you information for the DDA or DIA. So DDA is data dependent acquisition. DIA is data independent acquisition. So just a very, let's go one by one. There are several concepts which I want to convey here. It essentially, when we talked about MSMS analysis, I told you that we are selecting some very specific precursors and only trying to fragment those and then going to detect all the fragment ions, right? This is what comes under the DDA. Whether you do label free or you do label based, in either way, you are looking at some precursors and you are fragmenting those and detecting all the fragment ions, which comes under the data dependent acquisition. Or one could select potentially all the precursors, fragment them simultaneously and detect all the fragment ions. That is known as DIA, data independent acquisition, which is widely popular with a technology from SciEx, known as the SWAT technology. But also now with the fusion based work, also people are able to do the DIA. Now a similar concept can also be taken for the targeted workflow when you are doing either MRM or PRM. So MRM, which is a multiple reaction monitoring. Again, please don't feel afraid. We are going to talk each one of these techniques in more detail in subsequent days and the hands-on section. But today, in the first talk, I'm giving you the broad overview so that you will be familiar with many of these terminologies. So in the MRM, you are looking at, again, you have selected the peptides, which you are going to fragment those, and you want to look at their fragment patterns and generate their intensities to validate your hits. Is that upregulated or downregulated? Whereas in PRM, which is parallel reaction monitoring, you are trying to look for potentially all the precursors and fragmenting those and detecting all the fragment ions. Again, there are different type of instrument configurations can be used. In the MRM, you can use only the triple quadrupole type of mass spec configuration. For PRM, you can use the Orbitrap type of configurations. So this gives you probably one of the overview slide, which gives you a broad picture of different type of mass spec technologies which can be used and you can use in different type of applications. Again, we are going to talk this slide in much more detail tomorrow. I am going to only give you the nutshell that proteomics using mass spec can be variety of ways. It can be label based, it can be label free, it can be DIA, data independent acquisition, as I just talked to you. So these are DDA, data dependent acquisition. This is data independent acquisition. In DDA, you are looking at now selected precursors which you are going to fragment, and in this case, when you have these tags, you are going to look at those tags in the reporter ions at MSMS level. So ideally, you're going to take your peptides of interest, label the peptide with different type of tags. Either these are tandem mass tags or isobaric tag for relative and absolute quantification. Dr. Shrikant is going to talk to you about some of these label-based and other workflows of label-free shortly in much more detail. So I'm not going to give you a lot of detail right now on this, but just to give you a nutshell overview here, you are labeling your peptides with some tags, which is TMT or iTrack. You are mixing the sample like what we talked in DIGE yesterday, that you are mixing Cy3, Cy5 and Cy2 together, and then you are going to analyze these common pool as the one sample which you are going to run in the MS, and at the level of fragmentation you can monitor the reporter ions and find out what are their intensities. In label-free quantification, you are not involving any type of tags, and you are simply monitoring the spectral count of the peptide, and you are going to indirectly measure the fold change of that. DIA is more specialized. Here you are trying to generate more high resolution data by selectively looking at the mass window for different type of M by Z region, and then you are selectively acquiring the data and trying to generate that library to further use your data for the MSML data analysis. So let me stop here, and I hope I have given you, a bit of detail from the basic, which starts from the terminologies of mass accuracy, mass resolution, the M by Z ratio, why it is required in the TOF versus multi versus ESI based configurations, different type of nut and bolts of mass spectrometer, which involves different components of ionization and mass analyzer, how they form the hybrid technologies and tribrid technologies, and potentially they opens up many applications for us, which we'll be also having in a series of guest lectures, and you will see how these mass spectrometers are able to provide different type of data sets. That's all for my this lecture, and very quickly maybe I can take one or two questions from the participants if you have. But I'm sure whole day we are going to talk about same thing again and again and in much more detail. Also, at some stage, I'd like to know from all of you, given that most of you are quite at advanced level, to know that what type of mass spectrometers you have in your organization, and also what level of familiarity you have. So we will share a Google Sheet with you, all of you, to ask 2-3 questions. That what is, what type of mass spectrometer you have access to, or which you have used, or whether you have done any mass spectrometry based experiment yourself on these configurations or not. It will really help us to see where to set up the bar, among the participants, because we don't want to go too basic. At the same time, if we are too advanced, it may appear that many people want to still start from the basics. So we will know where the bar should be, adjusted, and that will be helpful for us. I see Dr. Shrikant is already there in the audience now. Dr. Shrikant, you are there?